So it is very, very exhilarating. And so we walked into the river, and it got deeper and deeper until finally the surface of the river was over top of our heads, and we were still breathing.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I got the understanding that this is the flowing of the Spirit of God. It is a manifestation of the Spirit of God. And in heaven, when one of the first things we do inside here is to take the people into this river, and there well, let me explain it this way. On earth, you know, our sins are washed away in Jesus' blood. Our souls are made clean in Jesus' blood. But when we get to heaven, we still remember these things. Even though our sins are washed away,
We remember earthly experiences.
we remember that how we were on earth, you know. And God said that these things are going to be wiped away. Well, it's bathing in the river that wipes these memories, scars we might call them, scars of sin. Even though the sin's washed away, our memory has scars of these things. And we keep washing until these scars are washed away from our memory. And then we can better enjoy heaven. You know, as I felt when I first went, oh, I'm not fit. But this makes us feel fit to enter into the kingdom of heaven. And talking about the Spirit of God, there are also fountains. I mean, beautiful, way up in the air and fall down, and sometimes are caught in basins. But my daughter had an experience about this I think you'd find interesting.
An experience with fountains.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Lois, you've also visited heaven.
Yes.
And I know you could tell us a lot of things, but let's hear about your delightful fountain experience.
Okay. This visit to heaven that I had was the very first one that I had. It was when I was 16. It was not hard for me to visit heaven because Dad had been telling us ever since we were young of his visits, and we were always excited to hear more about heaven. One day I was at youth camp, and after the service a lot of the young people were in the back room praying together. There were a lot of people around me praying. We were all praying out loud and nobody was paying any attention to anyone else. It was at that time that I was praying and praising the Lord, and I seemed to be able to see around me, and I was in a garden. There were tall trees, tall slender trees that the leaves went all the way down to the ground. There was no trunk that you could see. I was on green grass, and directly in front of me and falling over me was a fountain of water. The base of this fountain was clear like crystal, delicately carved like cut glass, but you could see right through it. It was pure and clear. The water coming out of it was flowing all the way up and over me, but it did not hurt. It was soft and it was warm and yet invigorating, comforting. I stepped out of this water and turned around, and there I saw the head and shoulders of Jesus in this water, in this fountain. And Jesus stepped out of the fountain towards me also. He had his hands out like this towards me. And there were other people in the garden with me. There were six people and Jesus there together in this garden. And we sat down right on the grass and had what we would call lunch or tea. I don't know what we ate, I don't remember. And after we had tea there, we all stood up, and I sensed it was my turn, my time to leave this beautiful place. My back was to a river, and I didn't want to go. And I said, I said, I don't want to go. Do I have to go? And the Lord said to me that you must go now, but you may return again and again. And I think that anybody who visits heaven doesn't want to come back. They want to go there.
They want to stay.
Yes, I did. Incidentally, I did visit that place again later, and I noticed something that I didn't notice before, and that is that the water coming out of the fountains was very loud and rushing and very exciting, like when you see a big waterfall and it's really loud.
We talked about the tree of life and the river of life. Yes. Lois, about the wonderful fountain experience. Mm-hmm. And now what about the street of gold?
Now this golden street is right next to the tree of life. And then the tree of life is right next to the crystal river. And then the same thing is on the other side. The tree of life and then the golden streets.
Is it one street that is interconnected, or is it a group of streets?
It is, it's a rather complicated question. In a way it's connected, and in a way it's different. But the gold pavement goes certain distance, and then there's grass with flowers around the tree of life. And then you go to another section where you come to the gold again, and that seems to be the base of the river. The bed of the river seems to be gold. And you come up the other side to the same thing. And this street and row of trees and river spirals through this holy place. It spirals from the throne of God. It comes clear down to the eastern gate, and that's where it ends. So there are 5 major colors in heaven. That's gold, red, purple or violet, the light color, wine tone it might be, and blue and green. Those are the major colors of heaven. Now these colors are what make heaven interesting. Well, let me compare it to a sky. You're used to seeing the sky change colors, you know. The sunset, never two alike, always changing and interesting. So that's what these colors do in heaven. They make colorful sky. But mostly it is gold. These colors are more for decorating, like the walls of the temple, other walls around the gate, the foundations. These things have the colors in them. And these 5 major colors blend together, of course, to make other colors. You might say, well, where's orange? I don't know, except that orange is the color of some flesh, the color of orange. Maybe why that color is omitted. But then gold is very close to that.
Right, and that's the sky color.
The sky color is usually that color. One time in Florida, we saw the clouds all lit up gold. And as they shone down, the leaves on the trees were gold, the ground was gold, and the way the light shone from all the angles, there were no shadows under the trees. And we were sitting in church in town. I disturbed the service by saying, look at that. I was talking to my family. I said, looks just like heaven. The preacher was trying to maintain some composure.
But there are no shadows in heaven.
No shadows, no.
So the light source emanates from everywhere.
It seems to come from everywhere, but mainly from the throne of God, which we'll be talking about a little later.
I hope so.
Yes.
We have a river, but you didn't mention swimming. We have a street of gold, and you didn't mention walking. What is our mode of transportation?
That's a good question. The river of life, people consider themselves swimming in the river, and when, as we said, they bathe in the river to wash the bad memories, it's not, we don't need a wash, but they call it bathing. And we do swim in the river, play in the river. It's a park, what it is.
And Lois splashes?
Splashes in the water, yeah, and just have a good time there. But transportation, now that's quite a subject. Mostly, or not mostly, I'd say, it is possible to move by the speed of thought. You have to go somewhere just like that, and you're there, see? But there's another mode, which is to move slowly. You have the sensation of movement, which in itself is delightful. You know, when you ride down a scenic road, you can look out and see the scenery, whereas traveling by thought, you wouldn't see this.
Because you're there.
Because, right, you're there, see? But to travel, and you see what you learn as you travel. That's delightful to learn, see? And then you just appear to be floating through space. Like we see birds flying through space, they just seem to float through space. And while we don't have any wings, we just float through space.
Would that be comparable to walking on air?
Yes, but people don't walk.
So it's not walking?
No, it's not pedestrian. It's not walking. They just move gracefully. And then some people think that there's chariots, you know, and they think of Elijah being caught up in chariot of fire and horses of fire, you know, oh boy, fiery. But that's for demonstration on earth.